At 1406 Galactic Standard Time, everything changed. No warning, no preamble, no declaration. Every civilian screen across the outer colonies, nearly 3 billion in total, flickered once, turned static, and then locked into a single, horrifying image. 2 human boys, blooded, bound, bruised, dragged onto a raised steel execution platform by armored galactic soldiers. Behind them, towering banners of the Zaydrati Dominion flapped in the artificial wind, the emblem of the Galactic Council burning like a brand. 3 silver stars ringed by chains. In front of them, a sleek black camera drone hovered midday, red light blinking. Broadcast live. From a military station orbiting the planet Kefarian 4, to every planet they ruled, to every human they claimed to own. The elder boy, tall, maybe 17, had a cut down his face and a busted lip, but he stood straight, shoulders locked, eyes sharp, blue like shattered ice, staring down the lens. The younger one, 13 at most, shivered next to him. Short, skinny, wide-eyed, he tried to hold his brother's arm, tried to be brave. He was failing. They were both shirtless, their torsos marked with bruises, lashes, interrogation cuts, their hands cuffed with blue-lit plasma shackles. The older boy's lip was still bleeding. The younger had a busted cheek. A Zaydrati officer stepped forward, 8 feet tall, ash-gray skin, bone armor fused into his body. He held a ceremonial blade, a long, curved thing with a glowing red edge. He looked straight into the camera, his voice like scorched gravel. Humans have defied the Council, stolen weapons, bombed patrol ships, planted resistance cells where peace once reigned. This is the cost. 2 confirmed saboteurs, captured outside an illegal base on Veridin 9, caught transmitting anti-council code. Their punishment shall be an example. The older boy raised his head, lips twitching into a broken, defiant grin. He turned to the drone. "Yeah," he muttered. "Watch close." A soldier struck him across the back of the head. He stumbled but didn't fall. The younger boy was weeping now, not loud, silent tears, trembling lips, eyes locked on the crowd of soldiers. On the blades, on the stage, on his brother. The broadcast didn't cut, didn't blur, didn't censor. The camera zoomed in. Kian Vea, the officer snarled, reading from a slate. Age, 17. Human resistance member. Scout. Explosives expert. Unrepentant. Kian spat at his feet. Leo Vea. Age, 13. Code runner. Signal interceptor. Radicalized by his brother. Sentence. Public execution. Carried out by the Council's will. The audience said nothing. Across planets, human families stared in horror. Parents covered their children's eyes. Soldiers gritted their teeth. Rebels sat frozen in silence. On Kefarian 4, the platform was silent too, except for the wind, except for the blade, except for Kian, who turned his head one last time and said, "Leo, eyes on me. Don't blink. I'm here. Right here." Leo nodded, and the saw dropped. No scream, just a sickening thunk and a blur of red. The boy collapsed like cloth. The broadcast didn't cut. Kian's howl was inhuman, the kind of sound that sears itself into bone. It wasn't grief, it was rage given voice. He lunged forward. Plasma shackles hissed. His knees hit steel. Soldiers moved. He was fast to watch. The second sword swung. His head fell near Leo's body. The screen flickered to black. The feed ended, and the galaxy burned in silence. 4 billion humans saw it. The Council didn't care. They wanted them to see it, because the Zaydrati didn't fear humans. Not anymore. Not after 20 years of subjugation. Not after decimating Earth's fleets. Not after breaking the orbital rings and wiping out the last Earthborn legions. They thought they'd won, so they made a show of it. They executed 2 brothers, one barely old enough to hold a rifle, on a live interstellar broadcast, just to show what happened when humans resisted. They expected silence, fear, obedience. They expected humanity to kneel. But they had forgotten one thing. They had forgotten him. 3 parsecs away, deep in the ruins of the Trenzen Abyss, a derelict ship powered to life. Its engines growled low and guttural like a waking beast. No insignia, no name, just a burnt-out husk painted with ash, cloaked in void skin armor. Inside it sat a single man, tall, thin, pale, covered in ink and scars. A rifle sat across his lap, black and silver, forged from extinct alloys. His eyes glowed amber in the dark, synthetic, enhanced for long-range sight and neural targeting. He watched the execution. He didn't blink once. When it ended, he stood slowly, like something ancient rising from the grave. He pulled on his cloak, stitched from Zaydrati banners, clipped in his rifle, adjusted his gloves, then walked to the rear of the ship. There, on the wall, hung dozens of objects, council dog tags, medals, bones. At the center, 2 copper rings, child-sized, twine-wrapped. He touched them both. "Kin," he whispered. "Leo." He hadn't spoken in 2 years, but now he did. His voice cracked like fire through frost. 8 minutes. He set the ship's timer and lit the engines. 8 minutes later, the Zaydrati station that broadcast the execution suffered a catastrophic breach. The alarms barely had time to sound before the hangar doors were ripped open by a sonic impact blast. A black-winged ship crashed to the platform at terminal velocity, carving molten steel as it skidded to a stop. A lone figure stepped from the smoke. Hooded, cloaked, rifle in hand. Human, and not just any human. Ashwalker, the Reaper, the ghost of Zenthar, the Deadlight Sniper. The Council had hunted him for years. They thought he'd vanished, killed, disintegrated in the Rylith Nova collapse. But here he was, returned. For them, for the boys. The first soldier tried to speak. Ashwalker didn't give him the chance. The rifle spat once. A plasma round shattered his skull. The second screamed. The third ran. Too slow. The rifle hummed. Fired. Again. And again. Limbs flew. Blood sprayed. Bones cracked. The execution platform, the place they died, was the center of the storm. Ashwalker walked through it like death given shape. Every bullet was a signature. Every kill a name written in vengeance. Every scream, another verse in the Requiem. And as he stepped onto the platform where Kian and Leo bled, his voice echoed through the camera drone that still floated, still blinking, still live. 8 minutes. That's how long you had. He looked directly into it. Now you burn. In the beginning, there was silence. Then came the screaming. Exactly 8 minutes after the execution broadcast ended, the sky above Station Virex 9, that proud Zaydrati monument of control, ripped open. Not with fleets, not with banners, not with diplomatic warnings or demands. No, that would have been civilized. Instead, a ship breached their orbital perimeter like a bullet through glass. Unregistered, unsignaled, unstoppable. A single black-winged drop craft, stitched with scorch marks, crawling with ash, hit their upper hang at terminal velocity and carved its way through 2 meters of reinforced alloy. It didn't ask to dock. It punched a hole through the command bay and landed in the heart of the execution platform. Smoke filled the chamber like a rolling tide. The fire suppression systems failed. Lights dimmed, and through that swirling veil stepped a shadow. Humanoid, tall, lithe, cloaked in tattered fabric woven from dead banners. He walked as if gravity didn't matter, each step echoing with steel certainty. His rifle, obsidian black, silver-edged, slung across his chest, gleamed like a blade. Twin pistols clung to his hips. His eyes glowed gold, inhuman and piercing, like someone who had stared into death and learned to stare back. The few surviving Zaydrati soldiers on the platform, 33 in total, stood frozen. They knew who it was. They had seen the face. They'd heard the rumors. Ashwalker, the human myth, the sniper, the executioner who never spoke and never missed. He had not been seen in 2 years. They thought he died in the Nova collapse, thought his name had faded like all the other Earthborn legends. But they were wrong. They killed 2 brothers, and he came back for fire. The first soldier stuttered, "Identify." He didn't finish. A round tore through his temple. His head vanished in red mist. Ashwalker didn't wait. He moved with surgical grace, lethal and fluid like water forged into a weapon. He dove forward, cloak whipping, rifle tucked to shoulder. Crack! Crack! 2 more dropped. He pivoted, spun, pistol in hand now, firing mid-roll. Crack! Crack, crack, crack. A Zaydrati tried to raise his shield. Too slow. Ash Walker leapt, slammed the pistol under the chin, and pulled the trigger. Brain matter splattered the wall. No words. No mercy. He wasn't there to send a message. He was a message. The soldiers screamed into their comms. "We under attack. Intruder on execution deck. He's wiping us out." Too late. The lights flickered. A signal override hijacked their internal feed. Every screen in the station began streaming again. The same drone that had filmed Kian and Leo's execution still floated in the air, now reprogrammed, reproposed, broadcasting him, broadcasting the retaliation. Across 9 systems, the feed went live again, and the people watched as the Ash Walker cleansed the platform in blood. One Zaydrati soldier tried to run, got 3 steps before Ash Walker threw a spike grenade under his feet. It exploded with a sharp metallic crack, sending jagged shrapnel upward through bone and armor. The scream didn't even finish before he was pulp. Ash Walker reloaded mid-sprint, spinning into cover behind a supply pillar. He tapped the railgun mode on his rifle. Charged. Fired. The bolt went straight through 2 commandos in the wall behind them. One tried to beg. Ash Walker didn't flinch. He raised a second pistol and ended it. The last 3 soldiers did something desperate. They activated the Hell Gate, a thermal core flush meant to incinerate everything on the deck to prevent intel theft. Brave, but stupid. Ash Walker didn't move. Instead, he opened a steel capsule from his belt. Inside, a black disc. He slapped it onto the floor. It hummed, vibrated, then released a pulse of shimmering energy. An experimental shield of his own design, one that devoured heat. The Hell Gate failed, and so did their hope. Ash Walker tossed the cloak aside now, revealing the full silhouette. A slim, scarred body carved from war. Tight armor reinforced with combat gel. Slim cut, a harness loaded with shock knives, explosive slugs, fire capsules, tattoos of Earth's constellations inked into his left arm, Kian's and Leo's names stitched into his right glove. He was human, but not just human. He was vengeance with a pulse. The last soldier raised his rifle, shaking. Ash Walker didn't raise his own. He walked forward, unarmed, and said a single word. "Kneel." The soldier dropped to his knees, trembling. Ash Walker knelt beside him, reached into his chest plate, pulled out a small device, a broadcasting relay, the one they used to stream the execution. He turned it to face the soldier's eye. "Say your name," he said, cold and mechanical. "V. Vorek. Vorek Kez, security specialist. Please, please, I didn't." "Who killed the boys?" Vorek shook. I was just a tech. Commander Resh gave the order. We just filmed. We didn't mean." Ash Walker stared at him, then said calmly, "So film this," and lit the plasma charge in Vorek's mouth. There was no scream, just light. The station fell silent. 33 dead, 1 man standing. The camera drone floated behind Ash Walker as he rose. He looked into the lens and said nothing, just held up 2 fingers, then brought them to his chest, and turned away. The feed didn't cut. Not yet, because across 9 systems, humans were watching, and they weren't afraid anymore. They weren't just surviving. They were remembering. Back on Kefarian 4, a Zaydrati counselor slammed her fist into a control screen. Who authorized the broadcast again? "Shut it off. Shut it off." A tech stumbled back. "We can't. It's being transmitted from his drone, hardwired. He bypassed our override protocols. He's streaming us." The counselor growled. "Where's the station fleet? Get me orbital support. Get me a fire team in the air. Now." "Too late," came a whisper. They turned. Commander Resh entered the room, pale and sweating. He had been the one who gave the order to execute the boys. "He's not just a sniper," he said. "He's not just a killer." He sat down, breath shaking. "He's a damn ghost. He walked through us like we were cardboard. He's not here to fight." He looked up, dead-eyed. He's here to end us. Meanwhile, Ash Walker left the station platform, moving through the corridors like a shadow of judgment. He planted charges, tagged key systems, burned every file related to the boys, and left only one message in their place, engraved into the bridge floor with plasma cuts. You streamed their deaths, so I streamed yours. This is not war. This is payment. Then he boarded his ship, and as it rose into orbit, the charges detonated. Station Virex 9 folded in on itself. The execution site became a tomb. Fire danced in its place. And the galaxy learned the truth. Ash Walker didn't ask for justice. He delivered it. The fire hadn't cooled. Not in space. Not in the minds of men. Ash Walker's revenge on Virex 9 had been broadcast in 9-star systems in high-definition horror. 33 soldiers were killed in under 7 minutes. One of the most secure Zaydrati orbital platforms, turned into a smoking grave by a lone human with ash on his boots and no gods to answer to. The galaxy saw. The galaxy remembered. But no one knew the truth. No one knew why the most feared killer in the human remnant returned after 2 silent years. Except Ash Walker. He stood alone now, inside the inner chamber of his ship, the Sable Val. The lights were dim, bathing the walls in cold violet. The air vibrated with old energy, familiar pain, ghosts of war. His armor was scorched. His cloak still smelled of melted Zaydrati bone. His gloves were stained red and black. He opened a small steel compartment. Inside were 2 rings. Copper, handmade, twine-bound, child-sized. One still held dried blood in the groove. He picked up the first, ran his thumb over it slowly, and for a moment his hands trembled. Years earlier, before they were martyrs, their names weren't originally Vaya. It was a false surname, a cover. The real family name had been wiped from the official databases during the Purge of Veridon. Their home was a crater now. Their parents, coded as dissidents, had been vaporized by a Zaydrati orbital strike during a routine planetary cleansing. But the boys had survived, because he had found them. The mission was simple: eliminate the Council's patrol on Veridon 9, retrieve any stolen data, and exfil without trace. But when Ash Walker breached the bunker, he didn't find soldiers. He found 2 children. Kian had been 15 then. Stubborn, fierce, already trying to arm a dead man's plasma rifle with shaky fingers. Leo, 10, stood behind him with a screwdriver like it was a sword. Ash Walker had aimed his rifle. They didn't flinch. Kian stepped forward and growled, "If you're going to kill us, do it. We're not going back to a cage." Ash Walker had stared at him for a long moment, then lowered the rifle, and said nothing. He brought them aboard his ship, taught them how to move unseen, how to use the void to vanish, how to fire, how to fight, but he never let them kill, never handed them weapons with lethal rounds. Kian protested. Leo asked why. He'd only answer once. "You will not become me." They stayed with him for 2 years, traveled across war-torn sectors, moved between colonies that had forgotten what hope tasted like. They fixed his systems, built tools, hacked Zaydrati satellites. They smiled. He didn't, but he listened to them laugh when they thought he was asleep. Kian made the rings from copper wiring found on a derelict relay station, twisted the bands, braided twine around them, gave one to Leo, kept the other for himself. We're brothers, no matter what. Leo wore it on a chain around his neck. Kian wore his on his thumb. Ash Walker never told them, but he watched from the shadows when they sparred in the cargo bay. Watched Kian shield his little brother from electric drones. Watched Leo patch his brother's bruised knuckles after training. They weren't soldiers. They were sons, the only ones he ever had. Then they disappeared. He left them behind during a reckon-up on Heli's core, told them to stay put, stay silent, stay safe. When he returned, they were gone. The room was empty. No blood, no sign of struggle, just 2 empty food trays, and a comlink torn apart. He searched for months, used every dead contact, traced every whisper across black markets and deep net nodes, found nothing, until the broadcast, until their faces, until the execution platform. And now the ring sat in his hand again. Only one had returned. The other he had taken from the blood-slick platform, left beside a burned sigil on the floor. Kian's was gone. Leo's was in his hand. Ash Walker breathed slow, inhaled, exhaled, then snapped the ring onto his gloved index finger. He walked to the center of the ship, toward a control altar forged from salvaged Zaydrati tech and old Earthbound AI cores. He reached out. His hand hovered over a black panel. He touched it. The lights dimmed. The system spoke, voice cold and feminine. Authorization, Ash Walker. Mission query. His voice cracked for the first time in days. Resurgence protocol. A pause. Objective. He stared into the screen as if it were the face of fate. Full planetary retaliation. Initiate ghost signal. Burn every server. Target all known Zaydrati Council worlds involved in the purge of Veridin, the execution of miners, and the false imprisonment of Terran citizens. A pause. Then, confirmed. Protocol active. Systems warming. The lights flared red. Missile bays opened. Stealth tech engaged. And coordinates began to form on the screen. He wasn't done. Across the stars, the Zaydrati scrambled to erase the evidence. They tried to bury the broadcast, replace the footage with forged propaganda. They tried to explain the executions. 2 spies, 2 terrorists, plotting rebellion. They called the brothers radicals, thieves, traitors to peace. But it didn't work, because Ash Walker made sure the footage kept playing. In schools, in streets, on stolen transmitters deep in the slums of Chauvanine, the people saw the blade fall, saw Kian's eyes just before the strike, saw the way Leo didn't scream, saw the rings, and they remembered, not just the death, but the defiance. Ash Walker stood in front of a mirror now. No mask, just his face, hollow eyes, gaunt cheeks, a jawline marked with years of war and silence. He pulled back the collar of his cloak, revealing a long scar down the side of his throat, from a blade. Old. He'd earned it saving the boys from a Zaydrati patrol ship 2 years ago. Took it instead of them. Leo had cried then. Kian had sat beside him, watching Ash Walker bleed. "Why'd you do that?" he had asked, voice shaking. Ash Walker didn't answer. So Kian did. "Because you promised." Now, standing alone in the silence, Ash Walker closed his eyes and remembered. Yes, he had promised. You will not die in chains. You will not die afraid. You will not be forgotten. The rings burned cold against his hand. Then the final message came through his ship's long-range comms. A private frequency. Encrypted. Unknown origin. It blinked twice, then played a simple, shaky voice. To any human unit still listening. This is Resistance Cell Vea 21. We saw the broadcast. We know who he was. Kian was our leader. Leo was our spark. We are not afraid. We await the Ash Walker's signal. Long live the fire. He stared at the message. No emotion crossed his face. But for the first time since the execution, he nodded and whispered, so quiet even the ship could barely hear it. Then let's light the match. The gate to the Galactic Council was not made of steel or stone. It was made of arrogance. They called it the Solar Tribunal, an orbital citadel constructed inside a dormant star, shielded by 25 layers of magnetic defense grids and powered by an artificial fusion core. It wasn't a fortress. It was a throne. The Zaydrati High Lord sat within it, beyond consequence. They judged species, leveled planets, signed death warrants over breakfast. And they laughed when they heard what Ash Walker did on Virex 9. A relic, a whisper, a single man. Let him rage. He is no fleet. He is no army. He is a shadow with a rifle. They kept laughing, until the fire came to their gate. It began with a blackout. 3 seconds. Every internal system in the tribunal blinked off. Lights, shields, surveillance, comlinks, darkness. A silence so thick it felt like the breath before execution. Then the speakers across the inner halls crackled to life. A voice, distorted, hollow, sharp. One word. Ashes. Panic tore through the lower levels. Technicians shouted. Generals barked orders. Shield engineers sprinted to control panels that no longer responded. The defense grid stayed down. unmoving, like a throat waiting for the blade. Then came the breach. The outer hull of the tribunal split open like an egg under a hammer. Not from missiles, not from orbital bombardment. From inside, Ash Walker had already infiltrated the core. He didn't come through the front door. He never did. He used the gate's own sun tunnels, solar waste exhaust shaft that flushed plasma into space. Everyone knew those tunnels were lethal. No one expected someone to ride them in. But Ash Walker had. He coated his ship in solar gel, timed his entry with a radiation pulse, and entered through fire. His dropcraft, the Sable Vow, landed in the tribunal's core vault chambers with all the subtlety of falling god. By the time the Zaydrati realized it was too late. He was already walking their halls. They sent guards, elite ones, the Dominion's highest-ranking Centurions, genetically modified, warforged, obsidian armor, weapons that hummed with overcharged heat coils. They didn't last 5 minutes. Ash Walker tore through them like memory through flesh. He was faster, smarter, ruthless. One guard tried to use a flame whip. Ash Walker caught it, yanked the soldier forward, head-butted him with a sonic blast helm, and plunged a carbon blade into his throat. Another fired from above. Ash Walker dodged the shot, flipped off the wall, and used a rail dart to nail the sniper's leg to the ceiling, before setting him ablaze with a phosphorus charge. The cameras recorded everything. Ash Walker let them. He streamed it again, hijacked the tribunal's feeds. Every screen across the Zaydrati Dominion lit up. Children eating breakfast, politicians giving speeches, traders aboard floating stations. They all watched. The man who burned Virex 9 was now walking through the solar tribunal. One man, one rifle, one storm of retribution. He reached the Hall of Judgment in 12 minutes. 21 bodies behind him. No wasted movement. No retreat. Just war. The tribunal's high council scrambled from their thrones. 11 alien lords in robes of shimmering light, their faces hidden behind gold masks. One, the Grand Arbiter, slammed a red glyph on his podium. A final defense protocol. The chambers air folded in. Walls sealed. 3 massive pylons emerged from the floor, each one containing a void sentinel, ancient machines built for planetary extermination. Ash Walker didn't blink. The pylons opened. The sentinels emerged, 15 feet tall, serpentine limbs, bodies of dark alloy and blood-red cores. Ash Walker whispered, "Finally!" He dropped his rifle, pulled twin plasma sabers from his back, and charged. The first sentinel swung a blade arm. He ducked, slid under, and jammed both sabers into its chest core. Overload surge. Sparks. Boom. Second one fired a cannon. He dodged the blast, ran up its arm, and drove both sabers into its eye, screaming as a metal groaned and exploded behind him. The third was smarter. Adaptive. It launched micromines. He let them come, then triggered his disruptor field. The mines blinked, detonated prematurely. The explosion engulfed the sentinel, and Ash Walker walked through fire, sabers flickering like twin tongues of fury. He stood amid the wreckage, covered in ash, breathing hard, then looked up at the High Council. "You killed them. You made us watch. You streamed it like sport." He threw a small device at their feet. It activated. A hologram. Kian, on his knees, bleeding, saying, "If you're watching this, remember, we're not gone. You'll feel us before you see us." The Grand Arbiter whispered, "How did you survive?" Ash Walker didn't answer. He raised his gauntlet, fired a high-pulse kinetic dart, straight through the Arbiter's mask. Skull shattered. The other 10 tried to run. He let 2 go. On purpose. Let them carry the fear. The rest, he hunted. Across the chamber. Over broken thrones. Between pillars of arrogance turned tombstones. One screamed for mercy. He slit his throat and carved the word lie into his chest. Another tried to detonate the self-destruct. Ash Walker snapped his spine before the sequence could finish. Then he planted the core burner. A sphere. Small. Black. Pulsing with inner fire. He set the timer. 3 o'clock. He turned to the camera drone. It hovered, loyal as a dog. "Stream it," he said. And it did. Every screen in the galaxy now watched the core of Zaydrati power glow red. Ash Walker stood in the middle, cloak boned, armor cracked, blood drying on his jaw. He raised one hand, held up two fingers, then turned them down, like a judge passing sentence. The final message broadcast in every language, every system. They executed two brothers. They streamed it. They thought we would kneel, but we rose. And now, you burn. Then the solar tribunal exploded. A white burst of sunfire tore across the system, faster than light, brighter than hope, and the throne of tyrants was no more. On Kefarian Fall, where the execution first aired, children stood in the streets watching the flames ripple across the screen. An old woman whispered, "He kept his promise." A child beside her held up a copper ring and smiled. Ash Walker never returned to a base, never sent demands, never raised a flag. He vanished again. But the galaxy had changed. He'd opened a vein in the regime. And now, every human born after that moment carried a story, told in whispers. One man, one rifle, two boys, a fire that couldn't be stopped. The star burned for 6 hours after the tribunal fell. A superheated spiral of sunfire where the Galactic Council once ruled. No debris, no bodies, no survivors. Just light, blinding, furious light. Across the Zaydrati systems, ships froze in orbit. Generals stared at their scanners like children watching something ancient die. Bureaucrats dropped styluses. Merchants fled border markets. Because in every language, in every corner of the Dominion, one word echoed. Ash Walker. Not a soldier, not a rebellion, not a nation. Just a man. A man who answered murder with massacre. Who turned execution into war. And yet, when the sunstorm cooled and silence returned to the stars, he was gone. No signal, no ship trace, no radiation trail, just vanished. But he left something behind. It began in whispers, on backwater worlds, in mining colonies and prison moons. Humans began building shrines, not temples, not totems, just a flat piece of black stone. Each shrine had the same words carved into it. No matter the planet, no matter the language. They killed the boys. 8 minutes later, they were burned alive. Do not ask who did it. Ask why they thought they'd get away with it. Beneath those words, people left offerings. Rings, scrap metal, bullets, copper wire braided into little circles. A child's drawing, a cracked pair of goggles. There were no faces on the shrine, only names. Kian, Leo, and beneath them, never signed, only whispered, Ash Walker. The Zaydrati tried to fight it, declared the shrines illegal, tore them down, burned the offerings. But every time one was destroyed, 3 more appeared. On ships, on walls, on weapons. A cruiser captain carved it into the steel of her hull. A deserter etched it into his blade. A child burned it into his desk. Kian, Leo, Ash Walker. Names became bullets. 6 months later, the first Zaydrati warlord surrendered without a shot. His troops had refused to fight. They had watched the execution, watched the retaliation, watched the tribunal burn, and they began to question. Not out loud, not at first, but in silence, they began to wonder. If one man could bring down the tribunal, who are we to fight what's coming? The galaxy called it the shift, a tide that couldn't be traced. One by one, human slaves rose up, smuggled copper rings under their tongues, used stolen wires to choke their guards, took back mining drills and turned them into cannons. When the fleets came to crush them, they didn't find armies. They found resistance cells whispering one line. 8 minutes. On the edge of the outer belt, in a field of broken satellites, a transmission pulsed once a day. It wasn't a call for war. It was a voice. Kians, we're not gone. You will feel us before you see us. No origin trace. No source. Some said it was faked. Others believed it was real. But every time it played, recruits tripled. And in the dead silence between systems, ships began painting their hulls black. Twine-wrapped rings hung from cockpits. And at night, soldiers knelt beneath them stars and swore oaths to names they never met. No one asked who started the war. They already knew. Ash Walker never came back. Not to the shrines. not to the cities. But they say if you find yourself alone on a cold world, in a trench, outnumbered, there's a chance you'll see him. Just for a second, a shape in the smoke, a cloak at the corner of vision, a gold glint of eyes that burn hotter than any flame. And then silence again, because he's not there for glory, not for fame. He's there to finish the promise. Back on Kefarian 4, the world where Kian and Leo were executed, a monument stands now. It's not large, just the old execution platform, scorched and blackened, unpolished, untouched. At its center, fused into the steel, are 2 copper rings, one small, one larger, no glass case, no guards. Children come to it. They kneel. They touch the metal. Some leave behind their own rings. Others bring melted bullets and twist them into chains. Some bring nothing. Just tears. Just fists clenched too tight. And just this sentence carved into the metal. He didn't speak to us. He didn't raise a flag. He just burned the monsters who thought we'd forget. Years later, historians would call it the Ash Rebellion. They'd publish books, debate numbers, argue about tactics. But they'd miss the point, because the ones who lived through it didn't remember formations or statistics. They remembered a broadcast. They remembered 2 boys. And they remembered the man who turned grief into annihilation. He didn't die in battle, didn't fall with a blade in his chest or a fleet at his back. No one knows when, or how, or where. But one day, the transmission stopped. No sightings, no ships, no signal, nothing, just quiet. And on the edge of a dead star, a floating beacon flickered one last time. A drone hovered beside it, burned, cracked, but still functional. Its last message was short. There are no graves, only names. Make sure they remember. Then it powered down and drifted into the black. The galaxy changed. The council fractured. The Dominion crumbled. Not because of weapons, not even because of war, but because one man made the whole galaxy remember 2 boys they tried to erase. And that was enough. That was always enough. Fade to black.